Hi, it's good to see you again. I hope this past weekend has been a great experience for you as you heard Brian through the sermon take us through Romans 15, a key passage in which Paul expresses his heartfelt desire and ambition to see Christ made known in places where the gospel has not yet gone. That's a relevant issue for us today here at Emmanuel Faith Church. And as you meet together with your small groups this week, I want to give you 3 possible ways that you could discuss this in addition to looking at the sermon notes that Brian provided over the weekend. Here's the first question I want to suggest for you. In that passage, Paul talks about his ambition. It's a word that many of us in the Christian world are not really comfortable with. To be ambitious or to be a person of ambition makes us feel a little bit uncomfortable. Let me ask you this. What are some ambitions that you have in your small group? What are some ways that you have strong desires that you want to see fulfilled? Can a person have good ambition? Is to be an ambitious person even a good thing? And what would be a godly ambition? Talk about that idea a little bit. Is it something that we should have more of? Ambitions that would exalt and glorify God and make Him known. What would that look like? Here's a second thing I want to ask you to think about. And this has to do with this idea that Brian spoke about in the sermon, that there's a story, there's this grand narrative that God is writing through the course of human history. There is a plot, and there are actors, and there is an audience. And he illustrated all of this out of Romans 15. If that is really true, and I believe that it is, and there are people in that story, where would your place in that story be? What roles does God have for the members of your small group in the story that God is writing? What role are you playing in that? And how do you see that maybe changing in the future because of what you've learned? Last question for you. And this has to do with how Brian ended his talk, his sermon. And this has to do with the idea of what I'm calling inconvenience. He said that if you get involved in this story, that you need to be prepared that God will interrupt your life perhaps in certain ways, that there might be a certain element of inconvenience to being a part of God's story. If you were to take the next steps that God seemed to be putting on your heart as you heard Brian preach on Romans 15, if you were to do that, how might God want to interrupt your life? What might be the changes that need to happen? What might be the inconveniences that would result in your life by taking the step of being involved in God's story that He's writing among all the nations, all the peoples of our world? I hope that you'll wrestle with some of these questions in your group time this week, and as a result, come out of it together with perhaps some new commitments that you could encourage one another in as you take steps to make Christ known, as we're emphasizing, out on the edge, to the places in the world where the Christ is yet to be named.